Hello, YouTube. So this is my DIY snowboard edge base and delamination repair. So a lot of videos out on this already, but essentially this is kind of my crude, non-professional way to repair your snowboard to keep it going for a little bit longer if it's got a cracked edge for about 10 bucks and in about an hour. This is not something that I would recommend doing for a professional job, but if your edge is cracked, your board is pretty much on its last legs anyway, so this might get a little extra time out of it. So some of the supplies you need: clamps, epoxy. I use JB Weld. In fact, I used this marine weld stuff here. You don't have to use that. You can just use normal epoxy or normal JB Weld, but I thought this stuff was a little better. I had it from another project already lying around. You're going to have to take your bindings off, so you need a screwdriver for that, and something to punch the edge back into place, so a screwdriver or a cold punch, a hammer, a file, sandpaper, thin cotton or fiberglass. That's optional. I didn't actually use that. A razor blade or utility knife or X-Acto knife, a metal scraper or a straight clamping guide, so a piece of metal or a piece of wood, and some finishing nails. Okay, so there's a picture of my base. I actually had about 3 bad cracks in it. This is sort of from left to right, from bad to better, and this is the third one here. There's a 4th crack, but I never actually ended up fixing that one, so you won't see much of that in this video. Okay, so first thing, flip your board over and take your bindings off. You don't need to take your bindings off, but for me, just based on the location of the cracks, I needed to take one of them off so that I could get the clamp in there later. Yeah, it's really good if you have a workbench. I didn't have one, but flip it over and cut out a section of the base with the X-Acto knife or your razor blade. That'll give you, enough space to get epoxy in there and repair it. I did that for 2 sections because I had 2 cracks relatively close together. So this is a blow up over there. Okay, so I don't have any pictures on this, but the next thing you're going to do, if you want, you can cut a piece of cotton or fiberglass that will fit in there. It's not required. Set that aside, and you're basically going to want to bang these edges back down. So if I go to my previous slide, you'll see that these edges are kind of turned up. You want to bang them down and flatten them out as much as you can. It's pretty hard. That is hardened steel edge, and that stuff is basically impossible to bend with your bare hands, so you can imagine how difficult that is to bang back into place. Do the best that you can. I wasn't very successful. Put the piece of cotton back once you're satisfied with it. Put a little epoxy or JB Weld down, cotton, more JB Weld, then put the piece that you cut out of the base back on top. Make sure it fits in there. If you need to shave a bit off the base so that it fits in properly and flush, then do that. Oh. Okay, so there's a picture of the 3rd crack that I had. I banged it down as well as I could. Okay, covered it with JB Weld. I use a piece of plastic to make sure that nothing's stuck to the JB Weld, especially my file and my clamps. Here's my metal guide. I'm actually using a bastard file. It was something I had on hand, and it's hard steel, so it doesn't bend, and it's straight. There's a picture of this crack. Another picture of it over here. You can see that I use way too much JB Weld. Better too much than not enough. And here's a picture of the 2nd crack. This is just another piece of steel I used. And there's a really big close-up of it. You can kind of see with the bulge in the edge where the actual crack is. And that's what it looks like sitting on my floor. Again, I don't have a workbench. I highly recommend doing this on a workbench or a table. Okay, so here's what the 2nd crack looks like after it had dried, and I removed everything, took all the plastic off. It doesn't look too bad. The first crack though, I actually had a delamination on the opposite side. So after I removed everything, I then put nails in there, and there's lots of videos on this, but basically separate the crack and then pour some JB Weld in there with another nail. Be patient, takes a few minutes. You can heat it up to make the JB Weld run a little better. It's not necessary, just be careful that you don't overheat it if you do that. Fill that up and clamp it back down with another piece, with another support. I use a piece of wood this time and clamp that down to make sure that it would harden straight. And there is what the first crack looks like, all glued up. And there is a view from the back side. You see this was about where I had cut it out in the first picture, so I put that piece of base back in and glued it in place. And the second piece. So this was a piece of base that actually cracked off while riding. You see the other piece I put back in here, right here. I replaced it before gluing, before clamping. And there's one last look of the third one. So that's pretty much it. I don't have a video on it, but took a P-Tex candle to this and repaired that along with some other scrapes and then re-waxed it. I'll show you a quick video of the finished product. Here's just one last view from a different angle of the last crack. Thanks for... So here is the finished product after being re-waxed and taken some P-Tex to it. It's pretty smooth. You see, still it's not completely level. It looks a little rough. I could have done a better job cleaning that up, but at least there's no cracks or gaps where moisture can get in. Now this one, you see there, it's actually already split again, and I haven't even used this yet, so that's not very good there. But this seems to be good, at least where the base is, so I'll probably just grind that crack down and hope for the best. And the third one, it's actually the little crack there that I never even really did anything with. It was just too small. And the fourth one right there, it doesn't look too bad, but you can kind of see the bulge in the base. Anyway, so I would say it was probably about 3 out of 10 success, but it's better than nothing, so we'll see how it goes.